Fossils are constantly changing our knowledge of the past. To the discovery of our upright walking ape ancestor Lucy, to the presence of feathers on non-avian dinosaurs, the past is constantly leaving us new clues to unlock the mysteries of Earth. But very few finds have changed public perception of the planet's history quite like that of the Adams mammoth, a mummified mammoth corpse uncovered in the early 1800s, and a find that would shape our understanding of Earth's age itself. To understand how it did this though, we first need some background information, and to do that, we have to go back to the 1700s. At this point in time, religion still had quite a tight grip over science, with many taking the Bible story of Genesis as fact, meaning to them, Earth was no more than 6,000 years old. But this was soon challenged. Not only were the likes of Mary Annin uncovering strange marine reptiles unlike anything alive at the time, but from Western Europe, many fossils that appeared to be from elephants were uncovered. These finds puzzled scientists of the time, as all modern species of elephants were found in the much warmer climates of Asia and Africa. So how did they end up in the much colder continent of Europe? Well, several theories were put forth, ranging from that the fossils represented war elephants brought over by Hannibal during his war with the Romans, to the fossils representing modern-day elephants that had been displaced during the Great Flood. And whilst these were popular in certain circles, in 1778, one theory was published that garnered much more attention, put forward by French naturalist, that name. He suggested that instead of being bought or placed there, these animals would have instead wandered here under their own accord, when the temperature of the area was much more reasonable for them. See, his theory suggested that sometime before the present day, the northern hemisphere was a lot warmer, thus making it suitable for these elephants. This was a popular theory, as it not only explained the presence of these fossils, but also remains of hippos, rhinos, and big cats found in the area. Even with these theories, one man in particular wasn't satisfied. A man named Georges Cuvier. Often called the father of paleontology, he set out to examine not only the elephant bones from Europe, but also those that were being discovered in America, and came to the conclusion that instead of being modern elephant remains, they were the remains of a species that no longer existed, naming the North American finds as belonging to the genus Mastodon, and suggesting the European remains also be recognized as a different species, one that would go on to become the famous woolly mammoth. All this led him to state in 1796 that all these facts consistent among themselves and not opposed by any report seem to me to prove the existence of a world previous to ours, destroyed by some kind of catastrophe. But what was this primitive Earth? What was this nature that was not subject to man's domain? And what revolution was able to wipe it out to the point of leaving no trace of it except some half decomposed bones? This notion of extinction was controversial to say the least, as it went against many of the biblical theories of the time. I mean, Christians certainly weren't happy with the notion that Noah had left some animals behind to die. Even with him being certain that these were extinct species, he did have one question he seemingly couldn't answer. How did an elephant relative live in a place where no living descendants existed, especially with all the modern species living in warmer climates? Well, fortunately for Cuvier, this would be answered by a truly amazing find in 1799 from the desolate tundra of Russia. Here, a man named Osip Shumachov was patrolling the regions near the Lena River. The leader of a native tribe of Evenki people, he was on the hunt for reindeer when he noticed a strange lump poking out of the ice. Not knowing what it was, he left it there, but returned to the site every year, where the short summers of the area would eventually thaw the ice and reveal more of this lump. Eventually, on his 5th time visiting the site in 1804, the secret was revealed to be a largely intact specimen of a long-dead woolly mammoth. Now, mammoth mummies like this had been reported all the way back in the late 1690s, but none of them had ever been retrieved, and that wasn't about to change, as Shumachov did the same thing of cutting off the animal's tusks and selling them to a Russian merchant for 50 rubles worth of goods. Fortunately though, this merchant was a little more interested in the find than our friend Osip, as Shumachov had mentioned the tusk came from an actual mammoth. Hearing this, the merchant, whose name was Boltanov, asked asked to be taken to the carcass, but once they arrived, the body had already been defaced by scavengers. Despite this, most of the body was still intact, allowing Boltonov to take several measurements of the animal and later drawing the animal from memory. I hate to say it, but I don't think he had a good memory, or had seen an elephant before, as the image looked like this. Yeah, not very accurate, you might say. A sentiment that was shared by one McKay Adams, a botanist from St. Petersburg, who had been sent the image by a merchant 2 years later in 1806. Despite quoted saying the drawing was very incorrect, it piqued his interest as he could see that the remains were incredibly precious and had to be retrieved before they were lost. So he met up with Tolmachoff, and with the help of him and 10 of his tribe's people, they successfully located the mammoth. If the body was already defaced when Boltonov found it, then you can imagine the state that Adams found it in. The trunk, tail, organs, and one of its legs were entirely missing, but even with this, it was still by far the best preserved mammoth ever found, with skin, hair, and even a fully intact eye still preserved. So Adams and the men quickly got to work preparing the specimen for transport, starting with the sectioning of its skeletal parts, followed by the removal and drying of the remaining skin, and finally ending with the collection of any loose hair around the site, of which Adams managed to collect 40 pounds worth. With the parts now packed and on their way back to St. Petersburg, it became apparent to Adams that despite the preserved detail of the animal, it was missing one key thing: the oh-so-famous tusks. But instead of going through all the effort of finding the originals that were sold off, he took a much easier route. He simply found another pair and passed them off as the originals. Once back in St. Petersburg, the task of reassembling the mammoth fell to the naturalist Wilhelm Gottlieb Tilesius. Sorry. This task wouldn't be an easy one for our friend Wilhelm though, as despite detailing the discovery of the mammoth in a journal, Adams never actually included a drawing of what it looked like when he found it, meaning that all he had to go off for the reconstruction was Boltonov's picture. Fortunately, as luck would have it, Wilhelm had a little common sense, and instead decided to base the reconstruction off an Indian elephant skeleton housed within the same museum. The end result was a specimen that stood over 10 feet tall and had very minimal mistakes with it, such as the animal's tusk point outwards instead of inwards. This made it the first mammoth ever to be mounted, and with this we can finally circle back round to Cuvier. Finally, he could answer the question that had stumped him all those years ago, and by 1812, he was using the discovery of the Adams mammoth to prove how these elephant relatives could inhabit these cold areas. This proving Buffon's claims that these areas had once been warmer in Earth's past, showing that the far north had always been much cooler, citing the animal's hide and woolliness as proof of this. He would go on to say that this proved beyond a doubt that these fossil elephants were animals of cold lands, and that they never inhabited the torrid zone. Alongside this, he also used its discovery to show how the Earth's inhabitants underwent change over time. Though this argument wasn't by any means the last word on the claims to deep time, it's clear that the discovery of this amazing animal played a key role in shifting our understanding of Earth's past. Its bones, skin, hair, and flesh bring into light new knowledge of prehistory, and so too do the amazing finds that are found all over the world to this very day. So if you want to learn more about other specimens similar to Adam's mammoths, consider clicking the playlist, or if you want to know more about weird extinct mammals, consider subscribing and clicking the bell, as in the next video I'll highlight 5 weird mammals from the Oligocene. Until next time, bye bye. Its bones, skin, hair, and flesh bring into light new knowledge is quite a difficult word to say.